Hey blues fans, you found us. We're glad you did. Time for another episode of This Week in the Blues. It's our weekly take on blues history. I'm your host, Jimbo Big Train Madsen, with the blues band Big Train and the Locomotives. We're just trying to keep the blues alive, one post, one song at a time. So let's take a look and see what happened this week in blues history. Blues and soul singer Ann Peebles was born April 27, 1947 in Kinloch, Missouri. She gained popularity for her Memphis soul albums of the 1970s, while signed to High Records. Her most successful singles include I Can't Stand the Rain, which she wrote with her husband, Don Bryant, and radio broadcaster Bernie Miller. Texas blues steel guitar player Harding Hop Wilson was born April 27, 1921 in Grapeland, Texas. He earned the nickname Hop as a de-evolution of harp due to his constant playing of harmonica as a child. Wilson learned to play the guitar and harmonica at an early age. He got his first steel guitar as a teenager and performed at various Houston juke joints and clubs. After serving in the Army, Wilson decided to pursue a musical career. Blues guitarist Phil Guy was born April 28, 1940. He was the younger brother of blues guitarist Buddy Guy. Now, Phil and Buddy were frequent collaborators and contributed both guitar and vocal performances on many of each other's albums. Phil Guy was born in Lettsworth, Louisiana. He played with a harmonica player, Raffle Neal, for 10 years in the Baton Rouge area. He then relocated to Chicago in 1969, where he joined his brother's band, at the time when his brother was becoming known as an innovator in blues guitar. The brothers collaborated extensively with Junior Wells in the 1970s. Blues singer Louis Blues Boy Jones was born April 28, 1939 in Galveston, Texas. He served as a medic in the U.S. Army during the Korean War and later worked as a longshoreman and shipyard worker. Now, in the early 1950s, he moved to Houston and soon began singing backing vocals on recordings produced by Don Roby. Jones also worked as a backup singer on many of Roby's productions for the Peacock and Duke labels in the 1950s, including recordings by Bobby Blue Bland and Big Mama Thornton. Chicago blues guitarist Otis Rush was born April 28, 1931. His distinctive guitar style featured a slow, burning sound and long, bent notes. Rush was left-handed and played as such. However, his guitars were strung with the low E at the bottom, so upside down from typical guitars. Albert King did this too. Now, Rush often played with the little finger of his pick hand curled below the E for positioning. It's widely believed that this contributed to his distinctive sound that became known as West Side Chicago Blues and was an influence on many musicians, including Michael Bloomfield, Peter Green, and Eric Clapton. Blues guitarist Lefty Diz was born on April 29, 1937 in Osceola, Arkansas. His real name was Walter Williams, and before his 4-year tour of duty in the U.S. Air Force ended in 1956, Lefty began to play the guitar. When he returned to Chicago later that year, he came under the tutelage of Lacey Gibson and Earl Hooker. In 1958, Lefty joined Sonny Thompson's road band, playing rhythm and blues throughout the country. Now, during a gig in Seattle, a left-handed teenage guitarist named Jimi Hendrix, you may have heard of him. Anyway, Hendrix hung out with and was influenced by Lefty Diz. Blues slide guitarist Homesick James was born April 30th in 1910 in Somerville, Tennessee. And his real name? Well, it's been listed as John Williams Henderson, James Williams, or James Williamson. The same goes for when he was born. He's claimed 1905, 1910, or 1914, while his union records give 1924. Now, not much is known about his early life. He developed a self-taught style of slide guitar through playing at local dances in his teens. He claimed to be the older cousin of Elmore James, to have bought James his first guitar, and to have taught him how to play slide. In 1932, he relocated to Chicago, and he first recorded in 1952, including the tracks Lonesome Old Train and Homesick, which gave him his stage name. Chicago blues guitarist Jimmy Lee Robinson, also known as Lonesome Lee, was born April 30th, 1931 in Chicago. Robinson began his musical career as a harmonica player before taking up the guitar. Over the course of his career, he played with some of the biggest names in blues and recorded several albums of his own. He helped to define the Chicago blues style through his recordings and live performances. His music was deeply rooted in the African American experience, and he wrote songs that addressed issues of love, loss, and struggle. One of Robinson's most famous songs is Rosie May, which he wrote about his wife. The song has been covered by several other blues musicians, including Magic Sam. Blues guitarist Reverend Gary Davis was born April 30th, 1896. His finger-picking style was a unique multi-voice style produced solely with his thumb and index finger, and influenced the likes of Bob Dylan, The Grateful Dead, and Keb Mo, just to name a few. Davis was partially blind at birth and lost what little sight he had before he was an adult. He was self-taught on the guitar, beginning at age 6, and by the time he was in his 20s, he had one of the most advanced guitar techniques of anyone in blues. He played gospel and ragtime in addition to the blues. Blues harp maestro Little Walter was born May 1st, 1930. His name was Marion Walter Jacobs, and his revolutionary approach to the harmonica had a strong impact on succeeding generations, earning him comparisons to such seminal artists as Django Reinhardt, Charlie Parker, and Jimi Hendrix. Now, Little Walter arrived in Chicago in 1946. The thriving Maxwell Street strip offered a spot for the still teenage phenom to hawk his wares. He fell in love with local royalty, namely Tampa Red and Big Bill Broonzy. Walter joined forces with Muddy Waters in 1948 for a long run. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2008, the first, and to date, only artist to be inducted specifically as a harmonica player. Rhythm and blues singer Big Maybelle was born May 1st, 1924 in Jackson, Tennessee. She began a professional career in Dave Clark's Memphis Band in 1936 and also toured with the all-female International Sweethearts of Rhythm. In 1952, she was signed by OK Records, whose record producer Fred Mendelssohn gave her the stage name Big Maybelle because of her loud yet well-toned voice. In 1955, she recorded the song Whole Lotta Shakin' Goin' On, produced by up-and-coming producer Quincy Jones, a full 2 years before rockabilly, then rock and roll singer Jerry Lee Lewis's version. Lewis credited Smith's version as being the inspiration to make his version louder, more raunchy, and raucous, with a driving beat and a spoken section, with a come on that was considered very risque for the time. The godfather of soul, Mr. Dynamite, and soul brother number one, none other than James Brown, was born May 3rd, 1933. In a career that lasted more than 50 years, he influenced the development of several music genres. Brown was one of the first 10 inductees into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame at its inaugural induction in New York on January 23, 1986. Brown began his career as a gospel singer in Toccoa, Georgia. He first came to national public attention in the mid-1950s as the lead singer of the Famous Flames, a rhythm and blues vocal group founded by Bobby Byrd. Well, blues fans, we just covered some of the highlights here. Now, if you want to know more about these artists or other things that happened this week in the blues, and there's a lot of them, be sure to follow our social media pages. Or just go out and visit our website at bigtrainblues.com. We'll have a new episode next week. and we'll cover the birthdays of blues guitarist Robert Johnson and Joe Bonamassa. You won't want to miss this one. It's a good one. So, we'll see you then.